Today on SportsWorld, we're taking off and flying high. From Englishtown, New Jersey, the NHRA Summernationals heat up the quarter-mile track as Top Fuel racers get the green light. They detonate down the drag strip at speeds of 250 miles per hour with elapsed times of under 6 seconds.
Shirley Muldowney, the most successful woman in the world in motorsports competition. Last year on NBC Sports World, you saw her win an unprecedented third title at the 1982 World Championships. She is the only driver to win the NHRA Top Fuel title 3 times. In fact, no one else has ever won the title more than once. She has compiled more sub-6-second runs and reached 250 miles per hour more often than any other driver, including the legendary Don Garlits. Shirley started the 1983 season in championship form, winning the Winter Nationals at Pomona, California. But since then, she has not been consistent. Right now, the leading point setter on the tour is Gary Beck, her arch rival in Top Fuel competition.
We feel good right now. Gary is 500 points ahead of us. That is a half a race. We better start moving now if we're going to do something.
And here is 42-year-old Gary Beck, the overall points leader midway through the 1983 NHRA season. Gary is a former world champion, won the title in 1974. He owns the 10 quickest elapsed times in Top Fuel competition history. He's been that good a driver. But the last 2 years, Gary Beck has finished second to Shirley Muldowney in the overall championship standings at season's end. He wants to beat Shirley badly. Perhaps it will be his day. One of the feature events on the NHRA drag racing circuit is the Summer Nationals from Englishtown, New Jersey. Good afternoon, everyone. Don Cricky with race expert Steve Evans. Today on NBC Sports World, we'll be watching the Top Fuel competition. These are really land-based rockets powered by 2,500 horsepower engines. They're capable of accelerating from 0 to over 250 miles an hour in less than 6 seconds. An outstanding feel, absolutely the best are here, including 3-time world champion Shirley Muldowney. But, Steve, she's going to be challenged today.
Oh, you bet she will, even though her weekend has really gone just perfectly. Her game plan has worked. She's qualified number 5, and that's a perfect position for Shirley to strike from because she always picks up the pace on race day. Biggest surprise so far, I would say, is that Gary Beck did not qualify number 1. The world's quickest driver had some engine problems. He's back in about the number 4 slot in this 16-car field. If I were to pick a dark horse here, Don, in Top Fuel, it would have to be Joe Amato. Even though he's only been racing in this category for 2 years, he recently won his first national championship event, and he's qualified number 2 here in this 16-car field. He could be big trouble for Shirley Muldowney, Gary Beck, and the rest of them.
Now we go to competition in the second round. And these super-powered rocket ships are ready to burn out the tires, a tactic used to heat up the rubber for better traction.
Not only does it heat up the rubber on the tires, Don, but it also heats up the racetrack. A pair of hot, sticky tracks that the crews will back these cars right over, staging the driver on top of his own burnout tracks. In the near lane will be Jim Head, a graduate mechanical engineer from Columbus, Ohio. Jim's still looking for his first big national event victory. He'll be up against, in the far lane, Connie Kalitta of Ypsilanti, Michigan. He was around back in 1955 when they ran the first big national championship race. Operates a very successful air freight service in Detroit.
Now, a most important part of any Top Fuel competition, the staging as they inch forward, preparing to time the takeoff with the all-important green light.
And Jim Head has red lighted, Don. He over-anticipated the start and gives this race to Connie Kalitta, who has a lot of sparks coming from the rear of his car.
Connie with the problem, it appears to be all right now. These Top Fuel dragsters running on tanks of nitromethane. Very highly flammable substance, but Connie's all right and does advance now with a second-round victory over Jim Head on the foul.
As we look again at Jim Head's start, notice the front wheels on his dragster. They come up in the air almost immediately. That could have accounted for the red light, more so even than over-anticipation on Head's part. They came up and out of the beam. Kalitta wins it at 597, 220 miles an hour, and all of a sudden, in the far lane, Connie Kalitta's car starts to emit a fireworks show, really. And the color of the sparks tell you that these are magnesium sparks. There's something wrong in the clutch on Connie Kalitta's car. The sparks coming from the magnesium bell housing.
But despite it all, Connie Kalitta advances to the semifinals. Don Cricky with Steve Evans on a scorching summer day for the National Hot Rod Association Summer Nationals at Raceway Park in Old Bridge Township, New Jersey. Second round competition in Top Fuel continues.
And this pairing will pit Joe Amato in the near lane against 20-year-old Scott Kalitta in the far lane. Joe Amato, a wholesale performance parts dealer from Old Forge, Pennsylvania, qualified number 2, is not to be ignored. 20-year-old Scott Kalitta, whose father Connie has already advanced to the semifinals, is really a professional racer. It's his job, along with crew chief Ron Barrow, to transport these cars around the country and maintain them. His dad Connie usually flies in one of his jets.
Steve, you mentioned earlier that you felt Amato was a dark horse in this competition. Could win it all. Why is that?
Well, he's got momentum, Don. He won in Montreal a couple of weeks ago. He's a number 2 qualifier. Everything's going for Joe Amato right now.
Not a good start for Amato. He smokes the tires and is well behind, but look at him recover, and Joe Amato advances to the semifinals.
Seldom will you see a driver recover and win a race as Joe Amato did here against Scott Kalitta. A beautiful start by both drivers, but suddenly Amato's engine develops too much horsepower for this track. The tires are ablaze, so Amato maintains his composure. He has to actually get off the throttle to allow those tires to hook up again. Now, his speed on this run, Don, 250 miles an hour. It was that kind of top-end charge that paid off for Joe Amato. A very good drag race.
It was indeed Amato, a rising star on the top fuel circuit, and here is the points leader overall, Gary Beck.
Gary is one of the greatest competitors this sport has ever known, and he's driving the quickest top fuel dragster in the history of drag racing, the blue car in the far lane. Gary Beck from El Toro, California, the car owned by Larry Miner of Hemet, California. Gary will be racing in the near lane, Gene Snow from Fort Worth, Texas. Snow at one time a professional drag racer. Now does it just for the fun of it. The oil business has paid off big for Gentleman Gene.
Snow qualified 8th in this top fuel field. Steve, it appears that Gary Beck has a problem as he approaches the start line. He's indicating something to his crew.
And the crew is trying to find out whatever may be wrong with this engine, and they don't find anything wrong with it. They're communicating with Gary. He says that it's bad, but they don't seem to be able to find anything to repair. And Gary Beck pulls to the starting line, apparently to race Gene Snow.
Well, we'll all find out together the moment of truth in drag racing, waiting for that amber light to go to green.
Gene Snow in the near lane, Gary Beck in the far lane.
They're away and Beck doesn't leave. There was a major problem. His car never got off the line.
Gary Beck didn't even attempt to leave the starting line. So Gene Snow wins it on a single run at 5.98 seconds, 237 miles an hour. And Gary Beck puts it in reverse and backs away from the starting line. We'll have to check with Gary to be sure, but I would guess that this was an oil pressure problem. The crew was frantically trying to find a loose oil line or something that would bring that pressure up to normal, Don.
A bitter disappointment for Gary Beck. And now Shirley Muldowney is ready for her second round run against a very good driver from Texas, Jody Smart.
And no one, Don, has more respect for Shirley Muldowney's abilities than Jody Smart. He's raced her a dozen times and has been a loser 11 of those 12 times. He's from San Antonio, Texas, a performance parts wholesaler, a nice guy that enjoys his drag racing very much. It's strictly a hobby for this guy.
But not a hobby for Shirley Muldowney. She's a full-time drag racer, and her success is evident with 3 world championships.
Shirley Muldowney, the pink car in the far lane. Jody Smart, San Antonio, Texas, in the near lane. They're staged and ready. It's a beautiful start by both drivers. Some smoke off the tires of Jody Smart, but it is still Jody Smart.
A major upset here, as John Muldowney knows that the Muldowney racing team is done for this day after all the preparation. It's rare they're upset, but Jody Smart with a major one here. So now the 2 top point standing drivers are gone, Gary Beck and Shirley Muldowney. Jody Smart advancing with an elapsed time of 5.74 seconds. He hit a speed of 251 miles per hour. Even in defeat, though, Shirley Muldowney, who doesn't lose often, takes it very well.
Shirley Muldowney congratulating Jody Smart down here at the end of the racetrack. They've raced probably a dozen times, and just a few weeks ago did Jody finally beat her for the very first time.
Yeah, good run.
Shirley, you hate to lose any of them, but if you do, it might as well be to a nice guy and a friend, huh?
A real good friend. Friend to everybody. And you don't mind seeing somebody like that win. He deserves it. Now he needs to sponsor somebody.
Tell me about the race, Shirley.
It was just didn't have any power. I thought the lead was good, but he just motored right away from me. So we'll go back to the drawing board, maybe. Thanks.
So race day is over for Shirley Muldowney. And the semifinal pairings in top fuel are set. It'll be Jody Smart against Connie Kalitta, Joe Amato versus Gene Snow. Thousands are here in Englishtown on a steamy hot summer day to watch the Summer Nationals. one of the feature events on the NHRA circuit, and a very important competition in that it marks the halfway point of the World Championship points chase. Today we'll be watching Pro Stocks, four-speed creations that can hit 180 miles an hour in just a quarter mile. The Pro Stocks especially popular with the racing fans because they resemble so much the cars they may have driven to the racetrack. We'll also watch the super fast funny cars, rocket ships that can hit over 250 miles an hour in just a quarter mile. And all the top people are here, and so too is the specter of a flaming crash. The element of danger very much a part of this high-power competition. Good afternoon and welcome to Englishtown, New Jersey, and one of the feature events in drag racing, the 1983 Summernationals, National Hot Rod Association competition. I'm Don Cricky with racing expert Steve Evans. The National Hot Rod Association brings together every summer the best drivers in the world. Today we'll watch funny car competition and the Pro Stocks. There's nothing funny about this competition, though. These cars generate 2,000 horsepower running on nitromethane. They'll travel from a standing stop to over 250 miles an hour in a quarter mile. Steve Evans, the best in the business, are here like Don Prudhomme, the four-time world champion. He'll have a lot of competition, though.
You bet. Prudhomme really owns this race, Don. He's won it the last 3 years in a row and the last 5 out of 7. However, the #1 qualifier is a young driver from Cincinnati, Ohio, Mark Oswald. But Prudhomme is #2. And good year or bad year, anytime Prudhomme comes to the Summer Nationals, don't ever bet against him.
It just seems, though, this time of year things start to come around for us. We usually struggle the first part of the year trying new equipment and so on, and by now we're running good, and this event we're qualified #2, so we stand a good chance again of winning it.
Another part of our competition today is the Pro Stock competition. The cars look a lot more like street models, a whole lot different under the hood.
Oh, yes, they are. And there's 16 cars qualified in Pro Stock, Don, but I see this as a three-man go. The #1 qualifier, Frank Iaconio, is from here in New Jersey. He's got a definite home court advantage and, in fact, leads the World Championship points chase so far this season. The world champion, Lee Shepard, is the #2 qualifier, and Mr. Pro Stock, Bob Glidden, is #3. Look for one of those three in the winner's circle.
We begin our coverage of today's competition with second-round action in the funny cars. In the near lane in the white car is John Force. He's up against a record setter in Ken Veney.
Ken Veney hails from Wadsworth, Ohio. He does indeed hold the national record at a whopping 254 miles an hour. He's quite an innovator. He manufactures a lot of the racing parts that his fellow competitors utilize. He's up against John Force of Fullerton, California, who, despite not ever having won a big race, has managed to earn a living as a full-time professional in this drag racing sport.
John Force in the white car in the near lane as he inches toward the start line. The staging lights count down the start vital. Often the race is decided at the very moment of the green light. John Force is away first, and Ken Veney in the far lane, favored in this race, finds himself falling behind John Force. A winner and advancing to the semifinal round, John Force in a major upset.
Force was the better of the two drivers today. He reacts first to the Christmas tree starting system. Now, Force is losing traction just a little bit. You see the tires starting to smoke? He's really having to drive this race car. No easy piece of work for John Force. He won it on what they call a hole shot.
Above all, Steve, they called it an upset, and John Force is in the semifinal round. Now here is a legend in the drag race business, Don the Snake Prudhomme in his famed Challenger car, ready to roll in a second-round race.
Prudhomme is assured of a berth in the semifinals because there is no opponent in the far lane. This man, Raymond Beadle, the three-time world champion in his famed Blue Max, has had some problems back in the pit area, unable to make the call. It is a single run for Don Prudhomme.
Make it official, Don Prudhomme must travel the quarter-mile strip. He shuts the engine off halfway down, cruises in unopposed, and advances to the semifinal round of funny car. To Englishtown, New Jersey for the 1983 Summer Nationals. The low qualifier in funny car competition was this driver, Mark Oswald.
Oswald's nitro-burning supercharged engine rattles in front of him. The crew lowers down the plastic fiberglass body. Got to be kind of a claustrophobic feeling for Mark. He's 30 years old from Cincinnati, and the latest in a long list of talented drivers to wheel the machines owned by Louisiana coroner Paul Candide. Mark is up against a former Summer Nationals champion, Alissa Greeny from the Boston area. The beautiful green car will be in the near lane.
Been a long time between victories here, though, for Al Segrini. He won the Summer Nationals funny car competition back in 1974. Mark Oswald, much talked about on the circuit, getting better all the time as they inch toward the staging lights. Awaiting that green light that sends these rocket ships on their way to speeds often over 250 miles an hour and a quarter mile.
We saw earlier how important the start can be, but here they appear to get off right together. Mark Oswald is pulling away from Al Segrini, simply has more muscle as Oswald goes into the semifinals. 5.92 seconds, 249 miles per hour.
A very impressive run for Mark Oswald as he advances to the semifinals of the Summer Nationals.
The next pair already fired and ready. This car driven by Kenny Bernstein. Bernstein, a two-time national event winner from Dallas, Texas, actually has a summer home out in Southern California. Bernstein's opponent here will be Rick Johnson of New York, the custom-bodied car that appears at Raceway Park a lot of warm Saturday nights.
A major upset for Rick Johnson just to get to the second round because he beat one of the great names in funny car racing, Frank Hawley, in the opening round.
We saw Frank Hawley in the Chi-Town Hustler car from Chicago win the 82 Funny Car World Championship here on NBC Sports World. Looking back at that first round action, it was Rick Johnson in the far lane up against Hawley in the near lane. Hawley had to be favored not only by reputation, but he was the quicker of the two in qualifying. A good start by both drivers. Frank Hawley with a bit of a lead as Johnson gets sideways. It looks like Hawley, but then his engine blows. And Rick Johnson pulls that upset that has brought him here to face Kenny Bernstein.
The winner here, ready to go on to the semifinal round. A fraction of a second between the yellow light and the green light. A moment of truth. Drag racing. In that split second, the race can be won or lost as they inch forward. Staging. Buster Couch. Starter lets them away, and here they go with Bernstein in the far lane, taking an early lead, but coming up quickly is Rick Johnson, and Johnson is going to move ahead and oust Kenny Bernstein. Rick Johnson, an upset winner a second time. Next for Johnson in the semifinal round of funny car, Mark Oswald. Don Prudhomme will be matched against John Force. And of course, Steve, the Pro Stocks feature remarkably close finishes, as illustrated by this race earlier in Pro Stock between Frank Iaconio in the yellow car in the near lane and Warren Johnson in the far lane. At the finish line, it's Iaconio by a coat of paint. The Pro Stocks. We'll be back to watch him race after this. This is Don Cricky, back at the 1983 Summer Nationals in Englishtown, New Jersey. Pro Stock competition continues. A big assignment now for young driver Don Kuntz, an auto dealer from Cayuga, Indiana, in the near lane. He'll go against the reigning world champion in Pro Stock competition, Lee Shepard, in the far lane.
Like the funny cars, the Pro Stocks do a tire heating burnout, but the car remains stationary as the rear tires spin. They have an electrical device called a line lock. They push a button, it locks up the front brakes to hold the car during the burnout procedure. Don Kuntz is still looking to win his first national event title, but consistency in the early rounds earned him the number 7 spot in the standings last year. Lee Shepard, the two-time world champion, won the title last year by a wide margin, but the track here at Englishtown has not treated him well.
No, it hasn't. We haven't had a lot of luck here. I hope we can change it this weekend, though, because we really do need this race since the points are so close at this point.
A tough assignment now for Lee Shepard if he's to gain points here at the Summer Nationals. Racing in the far lane, Lee Shepard ready to go against Don Kuntz. Drag racing, a one-on-one sport, a winner and a loser in every race.
Lee Shepard was much the quicker of the two in qualifying. For Don Kuntz to get a victory here, he needs a lot of luck or a very good start off that line.
But the red light flashes at the start. Don Kuntz fouls, and Lee Shepard advances to the final round. Kuntz trying to get that perfect start you alluded to, Steve. Jump the start line.
He gambled on the lights and lost. A 788, 175-mile-an-hour winning run for Lee Shepard, and one of these two drivers will face Shepard in the final. In the near lane is Butch Leal. Leal from California driving an Ohio-based Pontiac Firebird. His opponent will be New Jersey's Frank Iaconio. He won this race 2 years ago and currently leads the world point standings over Lee Shepard.
And we recall, Steve, the incredibly close finish in a race between Iaconio and Warren Johnson earlier in this competition. They inch to the start line. There's the green light, and Iaconio gets a good jump. Butch Leal falling behind at the midway point, and Iaconio is going to race into the final round of Pro Stock competition.
Frank Iaconio wins it at 7.80 seconds, 177 miles an hour. And don't you know, these New Jersey fans will be riding with Frank when he races Lee Shepard for the championship to come.
with Steve Evans, Don Cricky back at the Summer Nationals as the fans work hard to keep cool. Earlier, Steve had a chance to catch up with points leader Gary Beck, who went out with a mechanical problem.
Gary, a good, strong burnout. You backed up. Everything sounded fine. No indication of any problems, and you just shut it off.
Well, Steve, what happened was the oil pressure of the engine dropped after the burnout. I had good oil pressure starting the engine and in the burnout and backing up, and it was fluctuating a little bit, and then a little dry hop, and we had zero oil pressure. I mean, zero, not 20 pounds or 40 pounds, but zero.
And here is the man who was beneficiary of Gary Beck's mechanical problem, Gene Snow, who advanced to this semifinal round matchup against Joe Amato, a driver who's come to the fore on the Top Fuel circuit, having recently won the Canadian Grand National event at Montreal. Joe Amato in the far lane, Gene Snow in the near lane. The semifinal round of the Summer Nationals as they approach the start line. Yellow, then green, then they're off, and Joe Amato moving to the fore, and Amato drives to victory and advances to the final round.
Amato has consistently been 0.2 of a second quicker than Gene Snow. Even though Snow's crew put in all the nitromethane possible, Joe Amato took control immediately, and just a few hundred feet off the starting line, had a full car length on Gene Snow.
These Top Fuel dragsters literally detonate off the start line, and now Connie Kalitta is ready for his semifinal matchup against Jody Smart. This race to go against Joe Amato in the finals. We see the burnout. Jody Smart in the far lane takes a very long ride on his burnout with good reason. In past competition, Jody's found when he's cut short his burnout ride, the engine stalled, cut out, was unable to start it, so it's cost him competitions in the past, and now he takes the long run before the regular start. Steve?
The first thing Joe Amato does is check the cylinder block in his car because it's an engine that really shouldn't even be running. He torched ahead, as they say, and had to patch it up with just some silicone and some funny putty, but it's still there, and you are in the final.
I can't believe it. You know, really, we've been lucky with the cylinder block. You know, we're just trying to put enough power in it and then smoke the tires again, but I had to pedal it one more time and, you know, just drove by him, and he didn't do the right thing, and we did the right thing. I guess that's what racing is all about.
Even though you pedaled it, it still ran in the 570s.
Is that right? Well, you know, it's really amazing. Now, we hope we can get lane choice over Jody, because I think this is going to be real critical in the final.
Well, congratulations. That's 2 national events in a row you've made the final.
I know. It's actually 4 races in a row we've been in the final round, you know. Like they say, when it goes your way, it's your turn.
Let's go back to the starting line and see who his opponent will be.
We'll find out whose turn it'll be in the finals against Joe Amato. In the near lane, Connie Kalitta. In the far lane, Jody Smart. Kalitta wants Jody Smart to stage. He's tired of that long burnout and the delay. Now they come to the start line. Connie Kalitta obviously upset before the start of the semifinal race. Getting ready for amber and then green, and they're away, and a fire breaks out in the car of Connie Kalitta.
Very unusual to see a fire like this right up the starting line, Don. At the finish line, maybe, but I've never seen anything quite like this. Jody Smart wins the race, but Connie Kalitta has suffered some dramatic engine damage. These cars hold like 12 quarts of 60-weight motor oil, and you just saw all 12 of them ablaze.
Connie Kalitta, Steve, was very upset before this race began, protesting the long burnout run of Jody Smart. And then when the race started, Kalitta's dragster broke into a ball of flame. Fortunately, the engine in Top Fuel competition are positioned behind the drivers. There was no injury, but we have an irate Connie Kalitta with serious damage to his dragster.
In the replay, we see Kalitta motioning to the starter, let me go down this racetrack. He wanted a single even before Jody Smart was up to pre-stage or stage. The starter said no, waited for both cars to get ready, and then kaboom. Connie Kalitta's engine just disintegrates. As I said before, this is the most violent fire I've ever seen in the starting line position.
A dramatic ending to the competition for the racing team today of Connie Kalitta, but fortunately no injury to Connie. It certainly looked like far worse than that at initial impact.
The first fire that was visible came from the bottom of the engine, so it probably broke a connecting rod, punched a hole in the oil pan, and then the headers ignite the oil.
Steve, did Jody Smart's tactics play any part in this fiery end to Connie Kalitta's racing day?
In my opinion, absolutely not, Don. Jody Smart always does that long burnout for reasons you explained earlier. Most competitors, when they race Jody Smart, wait till Jody starts backing up from his burnout before they even start their engine. Connie Kalitta and his crew got in a hurry here and paid the price.
Connie Kalitta and his crew done racing for this day. Connie protesting here to competition director Steve Gibbs, but quite evidently to no avail because the race is over. It is final, and the Top Fuel competition championship round will match Joe Amato and Jody Smart.
Now we go to the semifinals of funny car competition. Don Prudhomme, a four-time world champion, ready to go. All day long, we've seen the importance of the start in deciding these drag races. Earlier, Steve talked with Prudhomme about the importance of the green light in the getaway.
I've heard it said that if you see the green light, you're late.
You heard right. Yeah, that's exactly right. When they say, you know, you're not supposed to leave till the green's on, but if you do see it, you're absolutely right. You're late. The car needs to be accelerating by the time you see amber, because by the time it turns green, you're in motion where you hit the lights at the exact right time.
And Don Prudhomme's opponent in the semifinal round, John Force, has demonstrated remarkable adeptness at timing perfect starts. That's how he advanced this far with great starts so far today.
Don Prudhomme taking a final chance to kind of whack that throttle, keep the tires hot and clean as he moves to the starting line. John Force in the far lane, Don Prudhomme in the near lane. Remember, Prudhomme has won this race the last 3 years. Now, neither driver seems very anxious to put on that top yellow light, the staging light. Occasionally, one driver will try to force the other to stage first. A little brain game possibly going on here. Force finally moves in and stages first. Prudhomme follows. They're ready.
The green light, and away they go. And again, John Force with an excellent start. Jumps to the lead. He's going to take Don Prudhomme in the semifinal race with ease. John Force continues his string of upsets at the '83 Summer Nationals with another upset victory over one of the greats, Don Prudhomme.
Now, Prudhomme has been having traction problems in that right-hand lane. He may have tried to leave it something less than full throttle.
Perfectly timed starts, the key to John Force's success today. There he is in the far lane in the white car, beating Don Prudhomme early. Steve is with John Force now.
Well, John Force, a little staging battle up there. Did you maybe hope to force Prudhomme to build a little more heat than he wanted to?
No, I raced Prudhomme a lot of times, and he always staged first because my act takes a little longer up there, and when he didn't, I just went ahead and staged.
So John Force is in the finals of funny car competition, and one of these two cars will be his opponent. In the near lane is Rick Johnson, a surprise advancer to the semifinals. He's matched against Mark Oswald, one of the great drivers on the circuit.
The blue car in the far lane is Mark Oswald, the Candies and Hughes machine. Oswald looking to be in his fourth consecutive final if he can get by Rick Johnson. This is only the second time in Johnson's career he's gone as far as the semifinals.
Now they inch toward the start line. The green light, and Mark Oswald off to a great start. He'll rocket into the finals. As on this run, Rick Johnson falls off.
Sounded like Rick had some driveline problems.
The race day over for Rick. Mark Oswald versus John Force in the finals. For the racers and their fans, the final run of the Pro Stock competition coming up. Lee Shepard, the defending world champion, positioned in the far lane of the white car. New Jersey's own Frank Iaconio in the yellow car in the near lane.
You just couldn't ask for a better Pro Stock final, Don. The #1 and #2 cars in the world. Lee Shepard needs a win here to overtake Frank Iaconio in this year's world point standing. Shepard in the far lane, Iaconio in the near lane.
The fraction of a second between the yellow light and the green light is the moment of truth in drag racing. Getting the perfect start, the key, and there's a red light on the side of Lee Shepard. He is fouled at the outset. Frank Iaconio will be the victor in this 1983 Summer National Pro Stock competition.
Lee Shepard red lighted away a sure victory. He ran 7.78 seconds on a red light to Iaconio's slower 7.85. Both ran 177 miles an hour.
So we'll watch in replay as Lee Shepard hits the accelerator for blast-off. The red light comes on with the green. Lee Shepard across the start line early. And Frank Iaconio, a native New Jerseyan, takes a big, big victory.
Well, the race was over almost before it began, and you're looking at the Pro Stock champion of the Summer Nationals, Frank Iaconio. He also won it 2 years ago. Good job.
Thank you very much.
You think Lee was gambling up there?
I don't know. He usually doesn't gamble. You know, I'm sure if it was a red light, it was a real close one. He was just trying to really cut a good light.
Did you see his red light?
Yeah, I saw it. Yeah. In fact, the lane wasn't too good, and I got a little squirrely, so I don't know how his lane was, but, you know, if he didn't foul, it would have been a real good race.
Well, you gave your home state fans something to really cheer about.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thanks.
Frank Iaconio, a popular champion here in New Jersey, and now to be decided, the funny car final between Mark Oswald in the blue car in the near lane and John Force, who's run so well and upset Victor earlier in this day.
Mark Oswald in the near lane, Don, is no stranger to the winner's circle here at Raceway Park. He won here last year driving for the same team in another eliminator category.
John Force has also been in the final round here about 4 years ago, but he was denied the championship.
When that nitromethane fuel is pumped through the carburation system and ignites, it creates a roar and a thrust of power that is awesome. This is the finals of funny car competition. Mark Oswald, blue car near lane. John Force, white car far lane.
Can John Force pull off another one of those hole shots? He's been doing it all day long. Force is the last stage. We're ready. John Force again off first.
But look at the power of the Oswald car as he rockets from behind. It's Mark Oswald, the victor in the funny car competition at the 1983 Summer Nationals.
Mark Oswald needed top speed of the event to drive by John Force over 251 miles an hour.
The perfectly timed starts of John Force in the white car have been the talk of the Summer Nationals. Here he executes another great start, but he doesn't have enough car to hold off Mark Oswald, who has enough straightaway to rip ahead and take the Summer National funny car competition. And with this victory, the 30-year-old Oswald moves into a virtual first-place tie with Frank Hawley in the overall world point standings in funny car.
Mark Oswald already receiving congratulations as the Summer Nationals funny car champion. His second consecutive national event title in only his first year as a funny car driver. You'll remember he won here a year ago at the Summer Nationals in another category. No stranger to the winner's circle here is Mark Oswald. Mark going over to congratulate John Force on a beautiful final round. Very, very close racing. But for Force, his first national event still remains just slightly beyond his grasp. Congratulations from SportsWorld.
Thank you.
Was there ever any doubt down the racetrack?
Oh, I don't know. We was shaking pretty hard, you know.
Did you see John?
No, not really. I just stuck with it, you know, did the best we could. And luckily we came.
Tremendous consistency for the Candies and Hughes car.
What did it run on that final?
592.
That's pretty good. I'm surprised. You know, the way the track is, I'm real happy to run that steady, you know, on race day. It's hard to do sometimes with one of these.
You seem still a little stunned, Mark.
I am. I didn't get to sleep last night.
And plus, you're not just a hired driver. You work as hard on this car as anybody on the crew.
Oh, yeah, I really enjoy working on it more than I do driving it, to tell you the truth.
You got to drive it to find out if it works.
Yeah, I guess so.
So Mark Oswald is your Summer Nationals funny car champion again. Congratulations.
Don Crickey with Steve Evans back at NBC Sports World's coverage of the 1983 Summer Nationals. Right now, Steve is with Connie Kalitta for more on that flaming start.
Well, Connie Kalitta somehow is able to muster a smile here in the pit area. When's the last time you saw a cylinder head blown right off the block like that, Connie?
I saw somebody else do it a couple of years ago, and I just said, I hope it never happens to me, but I'm looking at it. It did it.
Was it that hot?
The engine was very hot on the start line. We had a problem with the thing. We ended up having a discrepancy about who started the engines first, and the engines and the fuel systems are very critical to temperature, and the engine was too hot. It was pinging. When I stepped on it, it detonated and broke a rod and blew the head off of it.
A calmer Connie Kalitta, and there's Jody Smart, who's advanced to the finals of Top Fuel competition against Joe Amato. Jody had a mechanical problem, needed a new engine between races, and Steve was there when that took place.
The one piece of equipment a driver hopes he never has to use during the course of a race is the engine hoist. But in the Jody Smart camp, a fresh bullet being installed in the frame rails of his Top Fuel dragster. Crew Chief J.E. Christick, the man sweating so profusely in the yellow shirt, found a burned rod bearing in the motor that has so successfully taken them to the final round. With a crankshaft problem, you don't dare run that engine. It's just not safe for the driver or anybody around. So J.E. Christick winches the spare engine into Jody Smart's car. They have absolutely no idea how this motor will perform, but they will put the same fuel system off the other engine, the blower, the injectors, and that is really kind of the heart of the motor.
Well, we're all going to find out now just how well it does run as Jody Smart in the far lane inches to the start line for the championship run in Top Fuel competition at the 1983 Summer Nationals.
We heard Joe Amato say earlier how important lane choice might be. Well, Joe did not get lane choice. Jody Smart ran quicker in the previous round. He has his choice of lanes. He's taken the far lane. We'll see if that indeed is a factor.
The staging lights counting down. There's the green light. They're away. Jody Smart smokes the tires, and Joe Amato takes command. He rockets to victory in the 83 Summer Nationals, his biggest win as a Top Fuel driver. Joe Amato, 38 years old, from Old Forge, Pennsylvania. Part of his crew is wife, Jerry. And they've all got a lot to celebrate. The quickest elapsed time of the competition, 5.59 seconds in this final run. And remember, he did it with an engine block that has been cracked throughout this Top Fuel competition. Steve is with the new champion.
Joe Amato wins his second consecutive national event, has now got to rate right up there with the Gary Becks and the Shirley Muldownies. Patched up motor and all, track record 5:59.
My first 5:50, that is. What can I say? Timmy, he did the job. You know, he's like a magician. I can't speechless, really. Let me calm down here a second. He just knows how to tweak the car just a little bit. I mean, he moved the motor a little bit, the clutch a little bit, and the thing just hooked up and left, and, you know, 5:59. What can you say on the track isn't really that great.
Was there any point where you were concerned down the racetrack?
No, the minute the car left and it didn't shake and I was out 100 feet, I knew I didn't see Jody at all. I knew I had a good race going. Then when I got in high gear, he makes a big top end chart. I was just hoping nothing, you know, sometimes you could blow the motor and he could come by you. But the minute I didn't see him coming and it was just buzzing along, it really made a good move.
Joe Amato with high praise for his chief mechanic Tim Richards as the Amato team wins the biggest event of their racing career, the 1983 Summer Nationals Top Fuel Competition. Now for Steve Evans, this is Don Crickey. Glad you could be with us on NBC Sports World from the Summer Nationals at Englishtown, New Jersey.